Battery. Need battery. Double day, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, let's get started and back. Welcome everybody to Garrett Mining Series. I think there is a 16 for today. Today we've got a very unique speaker. It's very good to have somebody with both mining and academic experience, and he's going to share that with us. That will be added up with business he's been doing. Our speaker today has got more than 35 years of experience in the mining field. He has been working with Freeport both in South America and the U.S. He has a master's in business administration from University of Denver, and then also an alumni from Colorado School of Mines, where I studied mining engineering. I'm sure he must have been in one of those rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to Mike and Kendrick.
Yeah. My name is Michael Kendrick, and he's right. I graduated a long time ago from Colorado School of Mines, and in fact, when I first started, this building was under construction, and the mining department was down the road in it was across from the field house, and but then the brown building opened up, and so the last couple of years I was in here. And I'm glad to see how well you've all taken care of it. It really looks great. So congratulations. I've got a lot that I can go over. And this slide just switched a little bit, but I've got 6 general sections that I can go over with you all. But I thought before we did that, I'd like to make sure that that my remarks help you. That it's the kind of thing that you're looking for. And so maybe we could just a quick discussion about who you are and what you're, where you came from, what you're looking for out of a seminar like this, and I can try to help you with that. Let me see if I can get this to there we go. So we've got safety, about Freeport, sustainability, molybdenum market, what's next, and questions. So I'm prepared to just give a little introduction on Freeport, but Trevor Lewis, who is in charge of mining technology for the company, will be here in March, and so I don't really want to steal his thunder, and he has a lot of really great slides to share with you all. So I'll leave it to that, but I can kind of give you a business overview of Freeport, and then we can delve into whatever part of the molybdenum market you'd like. And molybdenum, we go mine to market, so it's kind of unique in that aspect compared to, say, copper, where we're basically just as soon as we can turning it into cash, getting it to the smelter, or maybe selling it to a rod plant. So that's the general situation. So maybe I'll just go around the room and you can tell me who you are and if you're in graduate student and what you're thinking about.
I'm an undergrad. My name's Ray. I'm just here to get to know more about the molybdenum market.
Okay. All right.
All right, my name is Wilson. I'm also an undergrad in geology and also here to learn more about politics.
Okay, great.
I'm Rebecca, I'm a PhD student, and I'm here with my Taylor Institute class.
All right. This year.
I'm the bigger faculty here, civil environment mining engineering.
I mean, my one PhD is in mining, and I'm enjoying.
Oh.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
working at the Silver City Iron Mine. Go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's, well, we're very happy that you're doing that. Okay. Well, that's great. We're, as you know, we're really, Freeport is a big supporter of the idea that, you know, we want to support graduate education, and we want to help people either apply what they learn in the field, but also, you know, so that people can become professors. And, you know, we know it's a difficult road to do, but it's really important for the ecosystem of the mining industry that we have really well-trained and experienced people that are in the classroom. So really, that's great. Okay, I'm sorry.
My name's Emily Sloan. I did my.
Wow.
My name's Alexandra, and I'm a junior undergraduate right now in mining, and I've been interning with Freeport.
Yeah. And spearheading the mining team, right? Which is great.
I'm Moly Business. I'm actually working on mechanical excavation here and the ground construction and tunnel program.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, my name is Akash Chausya. I'm a PhD student in mining department, and my work is like related to rock mechanics, mostly understanding the support design workflows.
Okay, okay.
Joe Need, professor in mining engineering. I was in Tucson and I did a two-time recipient of academic industry mining fellowship from Freeport, so appreciate that. So I moved to Colorado a couple of years ago.
See, and that's how the system should work, right? Is we develop a great colleagues, so that's a wonderful. Okay,
Hi, Jamal Osami in mining department, and also the director of Earth Mechanics Institute, working on excavation issues, rock mechanics.
awesome.
Okay, my name is Mansa Densise. I'm a master's student in engineering. I'm part of Smart Fit projects, also by NIOSH. I'm working on the dust studies.
Okay. Yes, and you're doing work in South Central Africa on soil remediation, right? Yeah, that's pretty, I've got a niece who's very interested in that here.
Hi, I am Aslan. I'm a PhD student and interested in data science and resource estimation.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ryan Pradama. I'm a master's student in mining engineering. I was doing my intern in Baghdad, which one of the products was also in Moly.
All right, excellent.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm currently a graduate student of my department, and also certificates to student have.
Wow, great, that's fantastic.
Hi, I'm Bo Rodham. I'm a master's student in the Earth Resource Program, and I'm working on extractive metallurgy and metallurgy downstream processing. This is wonderful. This is a diverse group. That's great.
I'm very sure she'll be the lab coordinator for mining.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Tom Snyder. I'm a second year undergrad working at UMI.
Okay.
I'm Martero. I'm a PhD student working on extractive metallurgy using chromium compounds.
Wow, this is really a cool group. You gotta understand, it's a little bit intimidating to come speak to people in programs you know you can never get into. But the diversity, this is the things that you guys are working on is fantastic. Okay, I'm sorry.
Hi, Randy. I'm a PhD student in environmental engineering, and I'm working on acid treatment.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Hi, my name is Pete. I'm a geologist in the Earth Resource program, and I'm working on the geothermal geology exploration project. Kind of combine the data and my method.
Very cool.
I am Muhammad. I'm a PhD student here in Boston, mining department. I'm working on applying new technologies for mining city.
Okay. Yes. Excellent, okay.
I'm focused on mining operation and improvement.
Okay,
My name is Manuel. I have a background in geology, but I'm currently pursuing a master's degree in mining.
in engineering, okay. Okay. I missed, you're interested in what?
Sustainability.
Oh, sustainability, excellent, okay, good, well, there's a lot of people I think in this room that those slides will be helpful for. Okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yes. Simply, my name is Alvaro. Entonces, con las animasas.
Excellent. Okay. Geostats? Okay, sorry, the guys in the back row, I'm having a hard time hearing this, and so you might want to move up. I mean, I know I'm. Because it should be a discussion, really. I mean, this, and you've got some interesting things you're working on, so if you wouldn't mind moving up. So I can hear you, that'd be great. Yeah. And the last two, I'll.
My name is David. I'm a graduate student working on unconventional farms.
Okay.
My name is Kyle. I'm an engineer. I'm working on a support meditation. I'm working with
Okay. All right, guys, this is really exciting. I'm gonna go through this, but I want you all to guide this as much as you can or you want, and the things that you need. Stop me, challenge me. I mean, this is an academic environment, right? I mean, we should be discussing hard things, working on it, and I'll just give you kind of an overview of Freeport, and then we'll delve into these different areas. I think that most of you, there's something there for everybody here. I mean, that's the beauty about this whole industry is the diversity, the technical diversity that we just heard, it's all important. And there's so many applications and so many things that we can improve as an industry. It really excites me to be here with you all. Okay, so wait, let's just start with about, I just need to get to the first one, I think is the, see if I can, okay, well, we always start with safety, so let's start with safety. In Freeport, we start every meeting with a safety share. It has two purposes. One is there's normally something you should know about safety, like in my case, I should know how to exit the building, right? You guys probably know that, but I'd follow these signs, and then the recommended route is to go which way? That way. Okay. All right. And is there a gathering point? You guys have a protocol? Okay, so I'll just follow you and Linda and stick to you. But we do that at every meeting, but probably the more important work takes place in the field. And those of you who've worked at Baghdad and at Chino, hopefully what I'm saying, you experienced every day is, those line out meetings, reviewing what the critical safety aspects of any job that we're going to work on, making sure that we do it right and that it's well understood or critical, and that we're using the right equipment at all times. And the most important thing is if you don't understand something or you have a doubt, you stop work, because the worst thing you can do is go forward trying to get the job done, and then you get hurt, somebody else gets hurt, equipment doesn't function. So something that we really try to emphasize is stop work. It's just a fundamental of the way we think about things. And then we have been challenged. You can see our incident rate climbed in 2022. It's part of this post-pandemic workforce situation we find ourselves in, where we're hiring literally thousands of people a year, but we're making no progress in moving our overall headcount to where we want it to be. So there's a lot of turnover, and there's a lot of new people, and there's a lot of training involved, and it's really important that we get it right. So you can see in our emphasis here, there's a lot on making sure we do proper analysis, that we're using data, and then that we're constantly working on training people and training them in a way that really helps them understand, and that we don't create a problem in the future. So that's our general situation right now. I suspect that anywhere you go, at least in the developed world, right, North America, Europe, there's even issues in Asia in terms of hiring and retention, which is kind of surprising to me. But there's just a lot of pressure on finding and retaining frontline workers. All of you are experienced, so this slide doesn't surprise you, but we tend to, this is part of our customer presentation, and so we tend to show it to people to remind them that while there are a lot of potential issues in mining, a lot of potential energy that we deal with, that we do deal with it well as an industry, and that if you look at, so this is U.S. data, and it's from the Bureau of Labor, so it's delayed by 18 months. So you can see though that mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction has a total reportable incident rate of 1.4. And just compare that to, let's say, arts and entertainment is at 4. Transportation and warehousing is almost 5. So you can get a sense that here's information services and utilities, professional technical services. We're in that realm, and we do that to make sure that people understand that we work very hard to make the industry safe, and that relative to a lot of industries that people work in, we are safe. Now, this is our worldwide data. Here's Freeport in 22 and Freeport in 23, running like a 0.6 and a 0.77. And this is an international crowd, and so I think you understand that the visor plays a big role here. We have a safe workforce around the world. We also have more people not getting hurt at a lot of places compared to North America. And so that, I would say that this North American data probably lines up really well with other people that come in here and talk, Newmont or Consol or somebody. And this lines up really well with an international group like Rio or Angle or somebody. But that is kind of the difference, right? More divisor, more people working, and probably about the same number of people getting hurt. All right. Any questions on safety? Okay. So let's talk about Freeport quickly. So we the way they line this thing up. Okay, just a second. I want to start here. Freeport is primarily a copper miner. In fact, depending on what the year is and how you tally it up, we're the world's largest producer of copper, or pretty close to it. We're also the world's largest producer of molybdenum, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we're located in South America, in Cerro Verde and El Abra. In the Grasberg in Indonesia is really our keystone mine, so to speak. And then in North America, we've got Morenci, Baghdad, Safford, Cerrito, Miami, Chino, Tyrone, and then the 2 primary mines for molybdenum, Henderson and Climax. So that's kind of the scope of our mining operations. And we really do have a lot going on here in North America, but we have very important facilities in South America and in Indonesia. So that's the general outline of what we're doing. Now I'll go back here and we'll talk a little bit about Freeport. So we really do value safety, respecting one another, working with integrity, pursuing excellence, and being committed to our communities down here. So we'll talk about that in our sustainability section. These 5 things, actually, we didn't sit down and write them out and then try to go do them. The way these came about was we sat down and said, you know, what are we doing? You know, who are we? And then this is what we came up with. So I think kind of building that from the ground up after, you know, when Phelps Dodge was acquired by Freeport in 2007, and they really have some fantastic management, and they came in. We worked for more than a decade before, you know, we decided to write this down, what are our values, but those are our values, and we really do try to live them as best we can. Okay, so responsibility. So when we get into the sustainability piece, you're going to hear a lot about responsible production, right? That's really the critical thing. Is what society is worried about, is, are we being responsible? Because we can't say that we won't have an effect, right? But we can say that we are responsible in what we do, and we take responsibility for what we do. And so the tailings classes, you know, the geotechnical things that I was listening to, all of it comes to bear in this area. So you've got to have robust governance in how you're managing something. It needs to be audited by third parties that are independent to tell you the truth. You need to empower people, and you need to help make resilient communities. I think you guys probably know it, but we might as well talk about it a little bit. You know, one of the things that's happened in the past and is very difficult to deal with is that mining companies come into an area, they upgrade the standard of life wherever they're working, right? Because they pay well, they've created this economic opportunity that you create the whole economic system. And then if that company leaves, you know, that community is really in a difficult position. And that's what people hear and think about in some ways, is not the 50 great years they had, but you know, this horrible 5 years that they're in and what can happen, right? So in my lifetime, I've seen that. I've seen it right here in Colorado. I mean, you know, Leadville was basically, I think 85% of the taxes came from the Climax mine. It was the second highest, second richest school district in the state, second only to Cherry Creek. You know, everybody in town drove a new truck and all that. And then the molybdenum market crashed, the mine closed. And what you guys probably have experienced is like, here's this poor town with, you know, a lot of immigrants and, you know, no social services and, you know, really in a difficult position. So what Freeport believes is that we should be constantly working to help our communities become resilient, with the idea that someday the mine will close. But hopefully you've got a flourishing community built behind you, or at least you've got people with skills to move on. And then thriving environments. And so I heard there was quite a few environmental engineers in the group, and there's so many aspects to that. But we do believe that, you know, clean water, wildlife, habitat, mines really are very good for all of this. Creating habitat that, you know, the animals can come live in and not be disturbed. Anyway, so we believe in that, and we work to help create that. We want a healthy and engaged workforce. That's something that all of you, when you go out into the industry, that's your responsibility, right? We need to engage with people. We need to help them be empowered so that they can, you know, rise to their highest levels. And you as leaders, that's your job from day one, right? And you'll do it in small ways, but important ways. We want to have operational excellence. So we operate low-grade ore bodies, with the exception of the Grasberg, across the world. So the way that you have to manage those is you've got to be really good at basics. You've got to have high equipment availability, you have to have, you know, good productivity from that equipment, and you have to have good recoveries from, you know, these low grades so that you can, you know, move yourself down the cost curve. And is everybody familiar with the commodity cost curves? So the idea that, you know, the lowest costs are on, you know, I guess it'd be the, depending on how you're looking at it, where the Y and the X axis come together and the highest costs are out at the far end of the X axis. And all that volume that's being produced comes at a different cost. So when material is needed, you need more material, and that usually comes in some volume. It could, the price goes up, and then there's material that's brought in, right? Ideally, if you're a miner, you're bringing in stuff on the low end of the cost curve to create, you know, to satisfy that demand. And then if the price drops, then somebody on the low end of the cost curve has to go out of business or curtail their production. So we're very sensitive to that, because we operate mines that, if you look at their grade, are all on the, except for the Grasberg, are all on the above 50% of, you know, the world's grade. So to get your costs down into the below the 50th percentile, you've got to be good at operational excellence. You've got to collaborate with your partners that are, you know, that are supplying you, and you need to be responsible about the value throughout that supply chain. Okay, so that's who we are. That's what we try to do. This is where we are. This is out of our annual report. So, you know, we make a little over 4 billion pounds of copper a year, about somewhere between 80 and 90 million pounds of molybdenum, and then of course we're selling, you know, really the last few years about 2 million ounces of gold a year from the Grasberg. All right, now let's go to. So let me stop there. So, because Trevor will come and he'll talk about copper mining and low-grade copper mining and all the things that we need to do to make ourselves more efficient, and the mines more safe, tailings facilities more stable, our water cleaner. But you guys have any questions about that right now, kind of on a broad sense or anything? Go ahead, yeah.
So you said that one of the things that you're looking at is making, like, ensuring that you're not impacting the biodiversity too much. With your mines, can you give an example of like a project or initiative to that effect?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, we work a lot on bat habitat across the Southwest U.S. And so we've been able to take old mine workings that were and then create essentially like bat caves, you know, literally, you know, like, so they come in and out. The other thing that we work on is making sure that when we revegetate areas, that we revegetate with proper flora and fauna, and then that drives bringing in herds, right? So like if you see at Climax, you'll see elk herds, you see out on the tailings in the fall and in the spring, you see up in the mine, actually, you see mountain goats that'll come in and out on the high ridges. So those are things that both happen, some by design, making sure that we're providing the right inputs, and also just by I think by the fact that in the Americas, at least, there's so much pressure because people are just filling in everywhere, right? So mines are places that animals can move to. But those are two examples, and I can get you more if you need them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so how does molybdenum fit into all of this? So we produce about 20% of the world's molybdenum in Climax. We have two primary mines, the Climax mine and the Henderson mine, and they have long histories. Climax mine started, its first production was in 1918. It was actually originally Krupp money. So the Germans were as they were entering the First World War, they realized that they could use molybdenum to alloy their guns, and that Krupp itself had offices in New York with exploration throughout the Americas, North and South America. And so they sent word, hey, try to find some molybdenum deposits. And so there was a young guy named Max Stott, and he was in the Denver office actually, and he went out up into the mountains, and he literally, the Climax deposit had been discovered in 1879, I think it was, very early on. You know, the silver rush in Leadville started in late 1877. So, you know, it wasn't too long. People were in there, but they didn't know what it was. And they actually came down to Colorado School of Mines and got it identified as molybdenite. But then they didn't know what to do with it. And so, there was this molybdenum sitting up there. And there's a chapter in Tomboy Bride. Have you guys ever read that? This young gal marries this young engineer from Berkeley, and he's out here in the West working they're living in Leadville, and he's working on developing the flotation technology to float molybdenum. And there was like a real struggle, but at the end of the day, it was called American Metals, which is a misnomer, right? Got a hold of the property. They named it the Climax Molybdenum Company. They got funding. They started, they got a concentrator up and going. But of course, the U.S. came in to World War I on the opposite side of Germany, and midway through this story, and so it became an American company, and that's how it got going. And they had a conversion facility in Langloth, Pennsylvania, because they were going to alloy guns. And the war ended in November 11th, 1918, and the first concentrates were made in March of 1918. I doubt they ever saw a shot fired in anger in World War I. But that's the origination of the industry. The real hero of this whole story is a guy named Bernard Philipson, and he's a young engineer from Columbia, and he was working for Climax, and he saw the potential in this large, high-grade or relatively low-grade deposit. Right, it's a big porphyry deposit that was different for those days. But he saw if they could get enough volume that they could start alloying all of these steels, and he saw that the car industry was going to start to grow, because that's right when it was starting to take off. And he went and took the next 6 years and tied up these contracts between the mine producer to OEM, and they were able to restart the mine in 1924. And to this day, that is how we run the company. We run from mine to market. And in its real heyday, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they had big product development groups. One in Ann Arbor, they had one here in Golden. They had a process lab as well, and they were basically making their market as they went along. So you can kind of think something like an Intel, or it's like they read Peter Thiel's book. Just keep going to make sure that you're the dominant player. In the 70s, the oil shock hit the West. That spurred a lot of the price went way up because people were drilling all over the place. And molybdenum is really good as an anti-corrosive agent in drill steels. You need it. You need lots of it. Like these things run like 17% alloys. So there wasn't enough. Drove up the price. And when the price went up, the molybdenum or the copper producers realized, oh, we've got this. We can just for a little bit of money with a new circuit, we can make a lot of money. And so that's then been the story. The recession of the early 1980s hit. The drilling fell off. The demand for molybdenum declined, and then you also had this increase of really low cost byproduct molybdenum from copper mines. So the price went along like that, like $2-3 a pound for a couple decades. But slowly you started to see this consolidation of first the copper miners, then copper miners with Molybdenum Company, so that we now have this combination of 30% of products that we make comes from a primary mine. The other 70% comes from a byproduct mine. And that allows us then to not overproduce, to produce what is needed by the markets and to give it the right quality combinations. And we'll see that a little bit later, but that's the story of the moly market over the last 50 years. There are other metals that are kind of like that. So, right now, niobium is kind of like where molybdenum was 50 years ago. Basically, one great molybdenum or niobium company in Brazil, and they supply 80% of the world's needs, and they work on developing products that use niobium. They come here to Carlos Gold Mines for some of that work. But something's going to happen out there, and then there'll be too much niobium, and then they'll be where we are. They don't. If you work for them, don't say I said that, but it's inevitable. That's kind of how it works. Then then you go forward. So anyway, this is us. We're making molybdenum in Morenci, Cerrita, Baghdad, Chino, Henderson, Climax, and Cerro Verde. And then we take it, we can convert it. We've got 5 conversion facilities, 3 in the U.S., 1 in Stillmarket, England, and 1 in Rotterdam. And we convert it into products can be used in metallurgical applications or chemical applications, primarily catalysts that are used in the chemical petroleum refining industry to clean up a lot of the sulfur and other deleterious elements there, and lubricants. It's a great lubricant, both as a MOS2 as a pure lubricant or as an oil additive if you convert it into a molybdenum oxide and then some other things and then add it into the oil. Those are the main markets. Okay. And we sell all over the world, as you can see there. Here's the processing facilities I talked about. We've got a FEMO plant in England. We can make chemicals in the US and in Europe. And here's the story I was telling you about the primary mines and the byproduct mines. And then you can see how that's grown. Now this is worldwide. This is actually very interesting as well. So there's only 2 primary molybdenum mines running in the West, and that's Climax and Henderson here in Colorado. But the Chinese are relatively blessed with low-grade molybdenum, and they run a whole bunch of if you look at it as China Inc., it's by far the largest producer of molybdenum in the world. I mean, they last year they made 270 million pounds including recycle, a little over 800 million pound market. But they consumed it all internally, and they imported some on top of that. So right now, like in a lot of things, in molybdenum, China is really important. But it's kind of the same blend. You end up with 65–70% of the world's molybdenum coming from byproduct copper, and the remainder is either our 2 mines or the Chinese, and that's how it plays out. Okay, so we've got reserves. We also produce rhenium. We can produce more rhenium if one of you guys wants to come up with some great applications for rhenium. We think it's coming back. There's a lot of aerospace activity right now. All right. So that's kind of the overview of what we do and where we do it. Do you want me to go into sustainability? Do you want me to talk about the markets? Do you have questions about our mines?
Sustainability? Yeah.
Sustainability? All right. You guys are okay. All right. So sustainability. You guys have probably seen a lot of this, but I'm going to tell you my story. And if there's anybody in the room or any of the professors want to correct me, please do. So the sustainability is a broad concept, right? And it really gets into the way we manage our businesses and the way that interacts with a lot of stakeholders. And so there's in mining, we've always known that we need social license to operate. So a lot of what you see happening in sustainability, we've done as an industry. And it really doesn't matter where you're from or how you operate. These ideas that you're going to invest a whole bunch of capital in a spot and going to be there for a long time, and you're going to have an impact on the community. You're going to have an impact on the environment. You're going to be part of that social fabric for a long time, and you need people's permission to do it. It doesn't matter what the law is in many ways. It matters, do the people in your community support you doing that? And so, today we, might be sustainability, you might call it ESG, but that's the basic concept is that you need the support of the people locally as a start, and then it kind of goes out from there. Or at least that's our philosophy. And then you get outside stakeholders that start to look at this and say, oh yeah, but you did this wrong, you do that wrong, you've got river and tailings, you're doing these things. And so then you have to come to some consensus on how do we define what responsible mining is, and then how do we get credibility for doing that. So for our story from that perspective starts here with what's called the International Council on Mining and Metals. And we're a member, and we were a founding member. And part of that story is that when Freeport first went to Indonesia, and they're out, I don't know if you guys are familiar with where that is, but it's on the island of Irian Jaya. I mean, it's, Papua is on one side and Indonesia's on the other, and our mine is very close to the border, and it's at 14,000 feet, and you go from sea level to 14,000 feet in 100 kilometers. It's some of the most, rugged terrain on Earth, and some of the most pristine terrain on Earth. So when they first arrived and they started to work, they realized is that we really don't have, there's not a government to work with. So if you come to here in the United States, I mean, you've got all kinds of bureaucracy, I guess is the way to describe it. But that's kind of has a negative connotation. You've got all kinds of structure locally, at the state level and the federal level that guide you in your decision making and getting approvals and such as to what you can do and what you can advance, etc. If you're in a situation where you don't, but you have investors who are going to hold you accountable to doing the things correctly, or they won't give you the money, and they want to know that things are being done correctly, what do? And then when you're part of this industry, now, I mean, this is going back, 40 years, right? So that has a mixed bag of players. You need to, you have to all come to some understanding that we have to behave properly, we have to behave responsibly, and we have to have credibility that third parties will confirm. So that's how they started the International Council on Mining and Metals. Were really these base metals companies that needed to have access to developing parts of the world, and they needed they needed to agree on, okay, this is how we're going to do these things. This is how we're going to set up the rules, and these are the types of things we're going to stand for, and we're going to have third-party auditing of what we're saying we're agreeing to do. And to this day, that's still the basis of the ICMM. So, and they're headquartered out of London. Okay, so then things start to grow and go along, and then we started to see that the sustainability movement really was gathering steam, right? And that civil society wants to, you know, I saw some data yesterday that shows that on the American political spectrum, it goes from neutral to positive 30% for mining, okay, like a favorability. So neutral, you know, okay, at least we know that people understand to a certain degree that, you know, I need metals to achieve these goals that society has to make things cleaner and address some of the big issues we have around energy in the world. But it's not the same level of support that agriculture gets, because that's really intuitive to all of us, right? It's like, man, I know I've got to eat, and I sense that, right? So that's the challenge that we have, I think, as an industry. This is what you guys are going into today, and I think it's true across the world. I can't think of anywhere in the world where somebody raises their hand and says, I'd love to have a mine next door. I don't know. I mean, you guys are from all over. I mean, does anybody have a different experience? Yeah, it's a big deal, right? Because you're disturbing the earth. People have a real kind of what's the word I'm looking, intuitive sense of like that's important, and it's different than doing agriculture where, you know, you can see that that's a, you know, it's a good thing if it's done correctly. So there we are. So what happened was that members of this group started to look at, okay, inside of our metals, what are we doing? And so the copper mark was born, and this is like, it's based on the UN principles. I think there's 35 of them that we've all agreed to that will address. And then so how do you go about proving that you're doing these things, right? And it's some things you think is kind of laughable, because we have a facility in the Netherlands, and one of the items is child labor, and the Dutch are like, well, that's illegal, and the auditor's like, okay, but how can you show me that you're not employing children at this facility, right? And so they got mad. They're like, we never would. And you go, look, we're not here to ask if you would or wouldn't. You just have to show us that you're not. And so anyway, so that's the kind of thing it is, and it's and when you start to look at things with an unbiased eye like that, you start to realize that no matter where you're operating, including right here in Colorado, every one of those issues that they bring up is something that you need to be cognizant of and make sure that you're doing correctly, and you're not always, you know. So it's a great thing. So, you know, Freeport uses the copper mark, uses the molybdenum mark. We've got all of our sites. It's at the site level. We've got them all certified by an outside auditor. But there's more to come, right? Because there's going to be a consolidation. There's lots of different groups. You know, there's one out of Canada. There's IRMA, which is out of Europe from the OEMs. You know, the car manufacturers believe in. There's some things in that are very difficult for miners to do, and so there's a lot of back and forth right now. There'll be a consolidation in that area. Am I being articulate about that, or am I confusing people? Okay. But at the end of the day, what we all know is that people want third-party certification, and they want us to behave responsibly, and they want to know that when they buy a car, that everything that's in that car was made as responsibly as it could be. Right, and there wasn't, there weren't shortcuts around that system, and people weren't being taken advantage of or you know, undue pollution being created to make that product. These are just other things that we belong to. You know, the American Chemistry Council, the International Molybdenum Association, things like this that we participate in on boards, and you know, work to make sure that our voice is heard. All right, these groups, this idea, I heard, you guys know who Mary Barr is? She's the CEO of General Motors. And she, I think she had a nice way of explaining it. She said, look, we've always believed, somebody was criticizing her for supporting ESG, and she said, well, okay, but we're responsible for 1 in 6 jobs in the United States. And that means we have a tremendous impact. We've always understood that we have stakeholders. It's not just stockholders. We have stakeholders, we have communities, we have supplier chains. You know, our ecosystem that we affect is bigger than just the stockholder. We've always known that. Stockholder is important. That's what we're all here for, is to make money. But we have to make sure that we're behaving responsibly. So I quote her a lot because I think that, you know, a mining company, a large car company, people like that, we understand that it's not just one thing, right? It's nobody is as privileged to just get to have one goal. There's a lot of goals, a lot of things we have to balance to make sure that we deliver what we're going to do, but do it responsibly. All right, here's some highlights that we've achieved in the last year. We're very proud of a lot of them. One of them that I really love is that we're one of the 100 most just companies in the United States. Global tailings standard. Who are all the tailings people here? All right, you know, that's a big deal to do that, and to again, it's third-party verification, and it's very much around the technical issues that you guys are studying, and then it's also how we manage those facilities. So there's design and there's management, and those things are really important. And we've built out a team over the last 15 years, really, in this area that we're really proud of. But it's a lot of hard work, and it's something when I started working, you know, too long ago, that we didn't think through it that way. I mean, people took, you know, nobody wants their tailings dam to collapse, but we did not put the kind of rigor into managing tailings then as we do today. And you know, it's definitely rigorous. It's definitely on every agenda of the meetings I'm in. You know, we get monthly reports, we have data we go through. If anything goes wrong, instantly people are on it. It's just a whole different standard. And if you think about it, it should have always been that way, right? But that's how you improve. Anything up there interest anybody, or? Yeah.
Is there any specific actions being taken on the tailings subject? Is there any specific project that you could share with the group that are being, you know, done within the company?
Oh, well, that'll be part of what Trevor will talk to you about. But in terms of like for new tailings facilities, we definitely are looking at all the you know, these variations on dry tailings. Okay. We're definitely doing that inside of tailings that we already have. One of the ideas, the Henderson Challenge, does anybody remember that? It was a few years ago. Okay, there was a couple ideas came out of that work. That one is you could turn tailings into aggregate or form products, right? The other is you could turn it into glass. So we have continued down that road, and actually, there's a company in Ohio, BRIXX, that makes form products and they make aggregates, and they have proprietary binders that they use, and then you know, so that it ties up that material so it can't leach, which has always been the knock on trying to do that. And I mean, it's impressive. I mean, you know, so we're definitely looking at that as like, you know, going forward, you know, creating aggregates from our tailings, our current tailings, and we're also looking at glass products. We're working with a company in Tucson on that. So yes, and in fact, personally, you know, I would I would really love it if we could, it's a goal of mine. If we can get this to a point where we could take that waste product and turn it from a liability into an asset, and use all of the material that we mine. And there's you just look around. You guys probably study it every day. I wish I had when I was here, but the aggregate industry, the form product industry is so important to the world. We're running out of high quality sands. And so we've got to create other options. And this really is one. And so those are two things that we're definitely working on. I get really excited about that. I think that we can, the tech guys go, we're going to change the world. And the iPhone has, but this could be a really good thing. So here's the copper mark. We talked about that. American Chemistry Council is, we're part of that. The American Chemistry Council is the same idea as ICMM. It's all about third-party verification, holding. The American chemical industry is an amazing thing when you start to look at it. And they were faced with really challenging situation in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and they really picked themselves up by the bootstrap, and they did some of the same thing I'm talking about. They pulled themselves together. They upped their game. They're really an amazing group to be around. We're in their supply chain, so we make chemicals and we sell to people who make chemicals, and I'm very proud of that. They're really a great group, and I'm sure a lot of them are here on campus recruiting folks. So here's our decarbonization plan. Trevor will get into that more with you guys in the future. The baseline is we've got to change our electrical supply. In Colorado, we're really tied to Excel. So the Excel plan is our plan, right? In a place like the Grasberg, we're building instead of, we've got a coal-fired plant, we're putting in a dual fuel plant. And then, we'll look for what the next step is after that. But we're committed to this, electrification of the equipment. We work with Komatsu and, the underground equipment, same thing. Energy and efficiency, that's really where the operators come in. And, we've always believed in this, that the more efficient you are, better off you're going to be. And you can see that plays out in energy as well. Communities and people, I talked a lot about that. We work a lot on helping, particularly women, become more empowered, more educated, be able to start their own businesses. And we do it both here in the United States and also across the world. We've had some really great successes there. So here we are back to Colorado. In a state like ours, this may not seem like big numbers, right? That, okay, we've got this, 300 million direct impact in Colorado. But if you're in a small county like Lake County, it's a huge deal. We supply a lot of the tax base that allows them to, improve their schools, deal with police issues, et cetera. And so that's really the difference is that you've got these kind of poor rural counties, and then of course you guys all live here on the Front Range where you've got, this gigantic economic engine running. But where we're at, we really do provide something that's important economically. We do pay a severance tax essentially, and along with property tax. There's the elk I was talking about there, and you guys can get into this and take a look at this site. Again, this is all about our communities. This is part of sustainability. We do a lot to. It's different than donating. It's supporting communities to make the investments that they say they need to achieve the goals that they want to outside of mining. So that's a big part of when we talk about this. Is one thing is that, you know, you want to have the right attitude and you want to have the right programs, but you also have to back it up with actual money. And so, you know, in a general sense, you guys are probably familiar with Patagonia and their 1%. It's the same idea, and it's the same order of magnitude that around the world, that's what we do. All right, so that was a lot fast. Since sustainability is a big topic, like, okay, so what did I say that was different than what you've heard or what you've seen when you're working? Yeah. Now, come on, I've got two boys, they're 29 and 31, and I know what I just said. You guys live in different realities, so let me hear it.
Not a question.
No.
Question online.
Okay. No question. Okay. All right, you guys are polite. That's fine. That's fine. All right. Let's talk about the moly markets then. Something that I think is really important to understand, and I certainly didn't understand it when I went to school here, is that there is this thing called essential elements, and they're the building blocks of life. Your body needs it, cells need it, and as a result, inside of like our body, there's this thing called homeostasis, and that will ensure your body's constantly trying to make sure that you've got the right amount in you. Molybdenum is one of those essential elements. So it's part of the building block of life. It's in your over-the-counter vitamins, and it helps the whole life cycle work. Now, don't ask me beyond that. It's like I can't answer it. Maybe there's somebody in the room who can. But the important takeaway is that there are these metals, and they're very different than what's called, you know, like say people think molybdenum is a heavy metal. Well, it's not, because a heavy metal bioaccumulates. Homeostasis doesn't work. It keeps building up in your body, and then it changes the way your body works. So lead is something like that, right? And so that's why it's why we have to be careful of lead. In our case, we're fortunate that molybdenum is an essential element, and you need it. It's used in fertilizers, right? So you kind of get a sense of how it works. All right. Molybdenum is like all metals. Right now, it's like 25% of consumption's from recycled sources. Copper's higher. I think it's around 35%. I think nickel might even be a little bit higher. Aluminum certainly is higher because it has a shorter life cycle. But the ability to recycle is very important. And the materials that molybdenum goes into are certainly recyclable, and that's something that we really believe in and try to point out. That you can build a bridge with stainless steel, and in the International Molybdenum Association worked for 20 years to get the engineering standards developed so that an engineer can just pull it up on his computer and design with stainless steel now. And if you design with stainless steel, you're gonna have no corrosion problems, no painting problems, and 100 years from now, that thing's gonna look the same as it does today, and you can pull it down and recycle all those metals. So when you're talking to your local governments, wherever you may live, they're going to tell you the stainless steel is too expensive. We can't use that. And that's only true until you go to the first maintenance cycle, which happens somewhere between 5 and 7 years with a bridge. And then you're money ahead. And then if you're living in a place like this, where you're just out of room, right? We can't make the roads too much wider or that kind of thing. You don't want to be disturbing these bridges. You want to just put them up and leave them there. That's the value of alloying steels, right? And that's really the value of molybdenum in steel. It's also used in engineered steel, so like in big gears and things, right? So you put like a 0.5% moly in there, and it'll sit up there and run forever. Okay. So that's where we're at with that. It helps with heat resistance. It allows you to, it's basically energy and pollution control are these big applications. Okay, where does the supply come from? This is the current situation. The 23 is estimate, but it's pretty close to right. You can see what I was telling you. Look, you can see how China is just massive increases in production. And you can see how the byproduct mines in South America are trailing off here. And then you can see in North America, we can't get going. So what's my problem? What do you think my problem is? Why have we not been able to improve our production?
Not too many deposits out there, or permittable deposits. I think that's the view to.
That's one. That's good. But I've got a mine running at 75% capacity. What's our issue?
There's not enough demand.
No. Labor. We cannot get labor. We can't retain labor. We can't get labor. We can't find a place to live. It's too expensive to find a place to live. So that's a very interesting situation to be in. It's something that just came out of the blue. Price of housing, say in a town like Leadville, went from, you know, a 2-bath, 3-bedroom, kind of 1950-ish house, was $180,000 in 2019. Today it's over $600,000. And think about what that means in terms of what the commodity price would have to do for us to maintain the same margins. And I mean, it gets complicated really fast. I think that's an issue, not just for us here. It's an issue everywhere right now. This lack of housing, inexpensive housing, and you know, not having access to the skilled labor that we need. Colorado, you know, we've got legalized marijuana, but we don't have a test to tell you if you're sober or not. Well, so we test for sobriety, and the best test we've got is a 30-day deal. Like that's really hard, because you know that just starts to narrow down the number of people that want to work for us. So those are some of the challenges that are out there right now. And what do you think is happening in South America at the copper mines? Well, they're having classic grades declining because they're these big porphyry deposits. So the grades declining as they both for copper and moly as they move out into the next pushback. And then they're having trouble with equipment reliability. They're having trouble with the skill of their workforce. That, you know, all the same problems that we're having, they're having. So there's some kind of a demographic switch that happened during the pandemic. It was probably coming anyway, but it definitely is here, and that's having an impact on the ability of North and South America to produce. Now, on the other hand, our friends in China. I mean, seriously, we've got a team in China, and at this point, I knew we thought they could get to this level as 220, it's 200. But look at that, that's 50 million more pounds. 50 million more pounds is like 2 or 3 climaxes in a period of 2 years. And so this material is coming from what we call, you know, mom and pop, but small to medium-sized miners that have been able to scale up as demand rose and there wasn't enough supply, price rises, right? And as the price rises, that was able to incentivize them to respond. And this is like such classic economic response, but they're able to do it. You know, like in the West, you know, even if you didn't have to permit, it still would take you 10 to 12 years, right, to to find the resource, to design the mine, to get the capital, to, blah, 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 blah. And then you got the permitting thing on top of that. So I think today they're talking like 15 years on average in the world to get a mine going. The ability of China to respond to economic stimulus and to really get out there and build something fast with really good capital efficiency is really amazing. And so that's happened, but still, all in all, if you net it all out, there's still more demand than there is supply right now, and that's what's supporting my world, our world right now in terms of molybdenum. So you can see here the big producers, Freeport, that's us, that's Climax, Southern Peru Copper, JDC is in China, Codelco, Luming's in China, China Moly's in China. Then you've got all the rest of these guys are essentially in South America, and you can just see that the challenge of, and everyone sees the price, so people are trying. It's amazing. So now look at this demand. This is fascinating. It's got a CAGR of 3.2%. It basically mimics worldwide GDP, right? Worldwide growth. That's pretty impressive. And copper actually is kind of the same story. It's just a little bit less. But if you think about what molybdenum is used for, it makes sense, right? So these are big industrial applications, and it helps a lot. Now, every one of those downturns, there's an explanation for. But look how it responds, once the economy starts to go. And then something else I heard the other day, which I hadn't really registered, there's only been 2 times since 1950 that the world economy has contracted. 2 times. The overall growth rate has been, less than 0. So I say that for you guys. When you're experiencing one of these things in your life, and you will, don't get discouraged. Hang tough, do your job, because it will get better. It will get better. The things that we supply are needed for higher quality of life, period. And the real thing we need to do is to figure out how to supply what's needed without doing too much damage along the way, right? That's what you guys work on every day, with keeping people safe and that, etc. Anyway, I think this is a fascinating story, because I can tell you, I won't give you my whole career, but when I started, the molybdenum market was 180 million pounds. I can't tell you the copper market, how big it was, but today it's like 56 billion pounds of demand, and projected to grow even more, because how are we going to move the electricity that we need? But this is the same story. So it's pretty fascinating. Now, this is the by end segment. This is where it's used. It's used, and when you look at something like this, when you look at it's used as catalysts, it's used in the chemical, petroleum, refining industry. You combine the two, that's a big area. That's like 30%, but that includes the plants. So like if you're going to build a refinery, you use a lot of high quality stainless steel for the reasons that we talked about earlier. It's 11% in automotive. This mechanical engineering, that's these big gears and things that people use. The processing industry, that could be pulp and paper. It could be other, pharmaceuticals. Transportation. We supply a company in Italy that makes the wheels for all the high-speed rail in the entire world. And so there's so many applications here. Aerospace, and then power generation. In every windmill, you not only do you need it in the structural base, but you need it in the gearing, you need it in the lubrication. And we've got a couple of things here to show you on that. We supply, you know, the current oil and natural gas industry. I think you guys are here at Mines, you know, it's not going away. I mean, we've got to transition. So what we need to do is be focusing on the new, but you still got to keep this going. The Ukraine war certainly taught us that. And so you can see when you're out doing this offshore work, there's a lot of molybdenum involved in that. Okay, so then this gives you a sense of where the new applications are, right? And this is for every megawatt of power, then you know how many pounds of molybdenum are used. So a hydro plant would use 7. You know, a nuclear plant uses actually a lot of moly. It's like, you know, 22 pounds in every megawatt. But then you start to climb up this curve, and you get out here with wind and solar thermal and geothermal, and those are staggering amounts of molybdenum that are needed in those systems for every megawatt. And you know, we've got to push for geothermal here in Colorado. I think across the West, you know, makes a lot of sense. You need a you know, a base load of power, and that's a really great way to do it. So you know, we're positive about molybdenum. I think you can see that. I don't know if you guys know, but it's on the every flat screen application in that stratum. The first layer is molybdenum. Your television, your iPhone, this computer screen. So it's at molecular level, so the volumes aren't quite the same as some of this, but it's there. This gives you an idea of supply demand, you know, on any given year, and you can see over the last, you know, we've been pretty much in balance up to the pandemic. There was more needed than consumed. But then look at this, you know, we're like in this period where even though we've brought on 2 new mines, you know, Big Tech did their big expansion at Quebrada Blanca. Angle just started up big mines, big expansion in Peru. Even with all that, you know, there's still not, you know, so we're not oversupplying. Whereas in here, you know, you just get a little bit of oversupply, and suddenly you've got a lot of pressure on the price. Okay, here's the history of the price. So remember, I was telling you it went along for a long time in this low range, and then things started to take off. And part of that's the consolidation of the industry, and part of that, of course, this was the big Chinese miracle. And then you guys are familiar with the current situation. So if any of us knew where the price was going this summer, we'd all be really smart, right? All right. Yeah. Chat, is there a question?
As you mentioned about the infrastructure sustainability, but what I feel after having this poll, particularly with respect to the human resource sustainability, as you mentioned, like there is a cost issue, which is making it much more difficult for managing that human resource. So within that scenario, what do you think, like how that sustainability can come for the human resource management for the mining industry?
Great question. All right, so I think that it's going to be, one is we have to do more automation. So you know, at Freeport we're kind of behind on that, and there were economic reasons for it. We couldn't ever justify 15 years ago to do the kinds of investments that somebody like Rio did. But today we can. So it's the exact same scenario, right? I mean, it costs a lot of money to put 4 people on a haul truck. And that starts to create the incentives to make the investments for automation. And so when Trevor comes, he'll talk with you about that. Particularly we run the same fleet of, haul trucks around the world with the exception of Climax, because it's a smaller scale. But that's where we're going, and then, trying to either retrofit or buy new, because there'll also have to be a different fuel source, right? We're gonna have to have a different power plant to achieve the carbon goals. So that's a big part of it, I think. I think the second part is that we're going to have to make investments for our workers. Period. It's not just paying them more. I mean, like say here, they've got to have a place to live, right? I mean, you can't, and so we're definitely pursuing that, and we're pursuing a much more rigorous approach to training than we have in the past. We train, but now we're really taking it to another level. So I think for people that are coming into the industry that aren't professionals like yourselves, I think that it's a good period of time, because I think everyone's going to have to respond to that in real positive ways, and so that's what we're doing. But I also think across the board, people are doing that, because let me be clear, the automation is only occurring because there isn't somebody to do the job. You're not really displacing somebody out of a job. You're trying to be able to do the work. Automation is going to bring a lot of great things with it, and it's going to make us safer, right? It's going to make us more productive. It'll generate more revenue per head for everybody who is working. Those are all really good things. And then the skill set. And when we say skill set, that I don't know, somehow it doesn't come across. I think the work that people will get to do is even more interesting than what they get to do right now, right? So that's the real key thing, is that look, I come from a family that came to Colorado in 1870, and literally they had to use a hand steel to make a living, and you look at how people can make a living today, and you start to spread that across, and you start thinking about technology and kind of the fun work that people could be able to do. I think is a really positive thing.
There's one question.
Oh, Priscilla, how closely does Freeport follow its carbon footprint? Okay, so let me answer the first one very closely. We've got system. We report out in our sustainability report our aggregate CO2 numbers, and then of course people want to know with more granularity about that. And so the issue that we have in terms of is making sure that we report it, that it's at an auditable level that can be reviewed, and that can be critiqued in a way that the same as our financial statements. So we know our gross numbers very, very well, and then we know at a site level pretty well, and then you start to break that down. So that's how we do it. But if you go to our sustainability report, Priscilla, you can see all that, and you can see how we've tracked it, and you can see what our commitments are.
Good, thank you.
And then on the sequestration, that's a great question, and I don't have the answer for that, but that's something that we should think about.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because there's lots of interesting ideas. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. Great talking.
You're like the voice of God there.
Yeah, well, it was a great talk. Thank you so much.
Okay. Are we running out of time?
More than.
All right. See, I told you I had more than. But look at this, Priscilla. Look at this. This is mankind. We're turning the curve. Turning the curve.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. I always, this always gives me hope. You know, you look at those CO2 emissions and you can see we've definitely changed the curve. Humanity has. I think we can, you know, a little bit of work, we'll get it turned over. These are just, you know, these are like some of the ads that we use, and you know, it's all the stuff I've been talking about. This is a concept that I'm just going to throw up here. But I think that people are more and more going to be thinking about where does their energy come from, how does it develop, and they're going to be thinking back at this level. You know, we talked a lot about this. We talked a lot wastewater. I didn't mention that. It's really important in treating water. This is a great story. In Tokyo, they had a big water leakage problem, and they were losing like 70% of the water because of the earthquakes and the fact that it was rebuilt post World War II, so it was a lot of plastics right from the main to the houses, and so things were breaking and they're losing their water. They did a program using molybdenum metals, stainless steels, that screw on and screw on either side. They cut their losses to 2%. They did the same thing in Taiwan and Italy. We've got a program going in Italy which has the highest water rate losses in Europe. And we'll report back to you, but we think we can get to the same levels there. It's something that's a really a great benefit. You know, you guys are engineers. Well, I love this. They told me to throw it in here, but it's used in a lot of really important systems. Okay, all right. Artificial intelligence. Oh, I wanted to get to this one. Look there's somebody at Texas A&M is working on an artificial skin, you know, that will actually be able to replace human skin when you get burnt and things. That it's fantastic. It's like wearable. Be able to use it. So we're proud of that. All right. I could go on all day. All right. Any last questions, or do you guys need to go write papers and grade papers? All right. So did I help you? Is that okay?
Thank you.
All right. Well, no, thank you. Thanks for having me. So the real reason I'm here tell your friends, I should have said it at the very beginning. So those of you who don't work for Freeport, you should consider it. And, you know, we'd love to have you. So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's more just, yeah, it's not really structured, I guess, it's just.
Hello, Mr. Kendrick.
Oh yeah, we met at the mining hall thing dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Good to see you.
This is my friend Wilson.
Big Wilson.
We're gonna Henderson mine this summer.
Yeah.
All right. Are you real? Oh, awesome. That's awesome.
I told him to come over because you were here. And
Yeah.
it should be interesting.